You're going to have to deal with Iran. And I think the nuclear deal or some version of it is going to be necessary in order to lessen the tensions and open the way for more urgent issues such as ending the war in Yemen, ending the war in Libya, ending the war in Syria, and so on and so forth.
James, what do you say to that? The U.S. has to deal with Iran.
We have very divergent differences about the efficacy of the Iran deal, but we actually all agree that the path forward is a stronger deal, a deal that brings stability to the region, a deal that brings confidence to the other neighbors.
But the Europeans don't necessarily want to renegotiate this deal. The Europeans.
I think that's the way forward for the United States, regardless of how the election turns out.
But the U.S.'s European allies don't want to renegotiate this deal.
Well, that's actually not true. I mean, when President Trump first came into office, the Europeans and the Trump administration had a very vociferous dialogue about renegotiating the deal. Now, they didn't agree, but they agreed to discuss renegotiating the deal. I don't think the Europeans were ever thrilled with the deal to begin with. And I think, again, we all agree that the only practical way forward is a deal that reassures all the neighbors in the neighborhood and creates stronger guarantees against proliferation. I think that's the path forward.
All right, Nancy, briefly, I'll give you the last word.
Joe Biden's whole approach is Build Back Better, and I think this will be a case where we try and have a new deal that improves on the old one with stronger support and stronger guarantees. And I think the world wants to get back to negotiations on this major problem, and I think we can do that.
Thank you all. James Carafano, Nancy Soderberg, Marwan Bashara. It is now exactly 2 GMT, and the polls are closing right now in 14 more states. Kamal is back with projections. I'm excited.
Take a big
about
breath
Texas
again. OK, and we'll come to that last.
Why?
So patience,
Okay.
all right? Patience. Hello, everyone. 0200 hours GMT, 9 p.m. on the US East Coast. And can I just also say 5 a.m. here in Doha? A lot of people in this newsroom and those control rooms over there who are working really hard. Big shout out to all of them in these early hours. Right. 14 states to take you through. So let's get into it. Louisiana, 8 electoral college votes to Donald Trump. Again, a lot of these are going to be fairly predictable ones. Ones like North Dakota, which is going to go the way of Donald Trump. Only a small state there with 3 electoral college votes. We look at Nebraska next on offer. In Nebraska, I think you may remember earlier I mentioned that Nebraska and Maine split their electoral college vote. So at this point, we can say there are 3 for Donald Trump. He is the projected winner in those 3 districts. 2 other ones which could be picked up by either candidate. Let's move on again. Indiana or Wyoming? No, it's Wyoming first of all with its 3 electoral college votes. Then Indiana as well. Excuse me, Indiana is the next one with 11 electoral college votes. And the state of Nevada as well. Now, this is when we start looking at some blue states. The state of Nevada, too early to call, with 6 electoral college votes. But that will be one which would likely go into the blue column a little bit later on. We know one that will. New York was a projected winner of Joe Biden there with 29 electoral college votes, the same number as in play in Florida as well. New Mexico is another one we'll look at to put in the column of Joe Biden with 5 electoral college votes. And Colorado as well, which has just been, no, sorry, too early to call in Colorado with 9 electoral college votes. And also Kansas at this stage, too early to call officially, but again, another one we would expect to drop into the Republican column a little later on, as we would with South Dakota. In fact, it's already dropped in with 3 electoral college votes for Donald Trump there. Let's check Wisconsin. Let's go through some of our swing states now, our battleground areas. 10. Too early to call in Wisconsin, as it is in Wyoming. No, I feel we did Wyoming already, actually. Arizona, sorry, it's a lot of information coming into my ear all at once. Arizona, 11 electoral college votes, too early to call as well. So let's actually have a little look at the state profile for you then. You saw the virtual graphic, which I was doing a little bit earlier, explaining Arizona in there as well. Donald Trump with 49% against Hillary Clinton's 45%. But you see how that gap had been narrowed. Previously, Mitt Romney with 54%, so a 10% gap in 2012. It was narrowed to 4% by Hillary Clinton, which is why we've got Arizona in our swing states, our battleground states this year. Let's check up in Michigan as well, which is still too early to call. This will be an important one. The blue wall, which you've heard so much about. Again, checking the history. They're actually checking the popular vote with 7% reporting, and Donald Trump comfortably ahead at the moment, but at 7%, we can't really take too much into that. It is too early to call with, what is that, 700,000, 800,000 of votes counted there. Now, as Folly wanted to talk about, Texas, with 38 electoral college votes, is too early to call. Let's check the popular vote. Now, that is very interesting. 37% of precincts reporting at the moment, and Joe Biden is just ahead. Now, how is he doing that in such a red state? Well, he's doing it in, and you saw this before again in that virtual graphic I was doing earlier, showing you the urban areas, the places like Harris County, which is Houston, also Dallas County, which is Dallas, and Bexar County, which is San Antonio. Joe Biden is either doing as well as Hillary Clinton there, or in the case of Bexar, San Antonio, is doing a lot better than Hillary Clinton did there. And he is also cutting into some of the Republican margins in places like Harris County and Houston as well. So at this stage, you would say not enough to flip the state, but it makes it very, very interesting. That number on its own says it's interesting as well. When you look back in the history, have a closer look at these. So Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, 10% between them 4 years ago. That's a small gap when you compare to previously when Barack Obama only had 41% against Mitt Romney's 57%. So Hillary Clinton had already been narrowing the gap 4 years ago. The Democrats have been making their inroads, and clearly Joe Biden is building on that in and around the suburban areas. Would it be enough to flip Texas? That would be political earthquake territory and would change the whole map completely. We are not, obviously, at that stage. We are at 38% of precincts reporting there. So the state of the race as it is right now. Donald Trump has 50% of the popular vote. Joe Biden has 48%. But then this is what happens, and, you know, I talked about it earlier with the Electoral College vote, the way that it can change. Donald Trump ahead. He has more people voting for him at this stage, but it is Joe Biden who has picked up more of the Electoral College votes. That's the way the system works. It can ebb and flow like that. In the end, the only one that matters will be those Electoral College votes there. So I think that's pretty much where we'll leave it there.
Okay.
Because I need to take a breath again.
I was hoping for some big news on Texas, but
that is big news.
It is big news, but as you say, it's too early.
And to flip it would be, that would be the story of the night if it happened.
Of course, exactly. An earthquake. Thank you, Kamal, for the moment. Well, let's check in with Kimberly Halkett, our White House correspondent. Kimberly, a number of states coming in this hour. Not big surprises, of course, but I imagine the Trump campaign still watching what's going on in Florida very, very closely.
Watching what's happening in Florida, but already we're seeing the Trump campaign sending out messages that they believe they've secured Florida. But what I can tell you, again, we've been talking about this party that's happening behind me. I don't know if you can hear it. This is a bit of a street party on Black Lives Matter Plaza. They're not Trump supporters. They are counting on a Joe Biden victory and prepared to celebrate. I don't think that's the same thing going on inside the White House right now in the East Wing, where we know the president is watching these returns coming in with his family and friends. There are a couple of worrying signs for the president, and for a president that we're so accustomed to being very, very vocal on Twitter, he is noticeably silent. A couple of the problem states that are looking troublesome for him right now, North Carolina as well as Ohio. He really needs to win North Carolina to win the White House. And if he doesn't, he would need the Midwestern states to really have a solid victory. And again, showing some worrying signs. So it's notable the fact that we have not heard much from the president.
Kimberly, thank you. Let's check in with Mike now in Delaware, the home state of Joe Biden. Mike, Kimberly says some worrying signs for Trump in a number of states. Is there concern in the Biden camp about any particular state at this stage?
Well, Well, rather like in the Trump camp, there's silence out of the Biden camp at the moment. All are simply watching the results, the ongoing analysis of what is happening, but nobody breaking cover at the moment. The situation is so close, so absolutely tense in a number of states that nobody wants to come out and make any calls at this particular point in time. Joe Biden said it very clearly earlier on in the afternoon that when he's got something to say, he'll come out and he'll say it. And very clearly, this instruction has gone down to his staff. We've heard very little from the Biden campaign headquarters behind me here. We understand that Joe Biden himself is still at his home here in Wilmington, Delaware. In a few hours' time, he'll come to the convention center with his vice president nominee, Kamala Harris. But at the moment, the campaign being very quiet. But there are some encouraging signs that have been seen throughout the evening. However, Florida once again remains a